Thanks for being with us here on Ask the Rabbi. My wife Susan and I just love receiving your questions and spending the time together as we collaborate on finding out the insights that ancient Jewish wisdom sheds on the challenges you're facing. Listen to this one. While I was asleep, a friend of mine had the nerve to look at all my texts on my phone. Now that friend is confronting me about some of the stuff that he read, stuff that he wouldn't even known about if he had not invaded my privacy by looking at the text messages. I'm really upset, and I don't feel I owe him any explanation about what is frankly none of his business. And this was from Lee. Well, Lee, both Susan and I have much to say about this particular question. First of all, we feel that today people are putting far too much of their private lives out into the electronic arena. Please believe us. Please believe that when you put something on your phone or on your page on the internet, please don't think it's private. Believe us on this. Don't put it there if you don't want other people to know about it. That doesn't mean that we accept your friend's invasion of your privacy. But before we even get to that, what we're saying is, please don't put down on your electronics and on your social networks things you don't want other people to know about. If you have something really private to convey, use a carrier pigeon. Send it by courier. But don't think that a text is ever private. It really isn't.
Well, one of the things I love about this question, I feel sorry for her because she was betrayed by a friend, and that's a terrible, terrible feeling. But someone might say, oh, come on, there was no texting. There were no cell phones in the days of the Bible. How are you going to look into the 5 books of Moses and find your answer to this? And of course, we look back and we say, was it in the 1100s?
Yes.
In the 1100s, there was a great rabbi known as Rabbi Gershom, and he made a ruling, a legal ruling, which was that you are not allowed to read. You know, someone writes a postcard, right, and you're the mailman or you're asked to give a postcard to somebody, that you're not allowed to read the piece of mail that's not addressed to you. Now, that's interesting, isn't it? Because does that mean that until then, that was the common custom? The assumption was that you could read if somebody, which today would translate, if somebody leaves their cell phone on the table, feel free to pick it up and look at their texts. Well, it's interesting because if we go back to the book of Numbers, there is a man called Balaam, and he gives a blessing to the Jewish people. He looks at the Jewish people camped in the desert, and he says in Hebrew, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, how goodly are your tents, O Jacob. And ancient Jewish wisdom says that what he was talking about specifically was you had an encampment of millions of Jews, and the opening of each one's tent did not face the opening of anyone else's tent, so that families could have privacy. So what happened between that time in the desert and the 1100s when Rabbeinu Gershom had to make a ruling you shouldn't reach each other's mail? Sounds like two different people, doesn't it? Well, it's not that people needed to be told in the 1100s. It wasn't a great advance. It wasn't great progress. Hey, I've got this great new idea that we've never thought of, that you shouldn't read each other's mail. It's until then people were on a higher spiritual level. They were closer to the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, and they would never dream of reading somebody else's private mail. As society deteriorated, we began to think we could poke our noses into each other's business more and
all
more.
of this notwithstanding, we think the behavior of your friend was appalling, and we think that maybe you have to choose friends a little more carefully, or maybe you have to reset this relationship with this friend and make clear what mutual expectations are. And of course, you don't owe the person any explanation at all for texts that they read. But in summary, that's how we feel about the question that you've asked us. Thank you very much indeed for being part of the show, and thank you for sending your questions. Susan and I pray that in the next week, until we're together for the next Ask the Rabbi segment, God should bless you with a week of good health and prosperity. Take that and run with it.